Aye, Shepherd's Pie. Greetings from the Philippines. Welcome back to the channel for a coffee and a chat. In the words of the great Max Bygraves,
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you a story.
now I'm sure that'll be lost on many of our American brothers, but when you know, you know. So yeah, I want to tell you a story, and it's quite a sensitive story. It's going to be the first part of two stories about a couple of things that have happened recently in Dumaguete, which have given me cause for great concern. And I would suggest they want to give anyone thinking about moving here cause for great concern. And if you're already here, it should give you cause for great concern. But because they are true stories and because they have happened quite recently, as the man once said, the names are going to be changed to protect the innocent. Because the last thing I want to do is offend anyone or upset anyone who was involved. But equally, I think they have to be told because they both demonstrate very succinctly the pitfalls or potential pitfalls of moving to the Philippines in general or anywhere in Southeast Asia. Although the second story really is more Dumaguete. But that will be in the next video. So I'm going to tell you a story that happened quite recently, which I was involved in. It's a funny story. It's one of those things, you know, it's like a good comedy. A good comedy makes you laugh and it makes you cry. And when this first happened, I thought it was hilarious. But as I thought about it more deeply in the following days, I thought it was bloody serious, which is why I'm telling the story, because it really has given me food for thought. And I think it will give you food for thought. And hopefully you'll find the story funny. But I'll go on the end why it's not funny, but you'll work that out for yourselves. So quite recently, as I say, I am going to change names. I'm going to change a few details because, you know, I don't want to, you know, embarrass anyone. Although realistically, not many people watch my channel. So the chances of any of the protagonists actually seeing this are very slim. But just in case, here's the story with the names changed. So anyone who watches the channel regularly will know I recently went to City Hall for the weekend with my partner Ellen and her lovely daughter Kayla. Now, the first night we were there, I got a strange message from a neighbour saying, can I call you? I need to talk to you. And I said, well, yeah, of course you can. So he called me, say I'm going to avoid mentioning his name. And he said, do you know a guy called, let's call him John. That's not his name, but he needs to have a name. Because he's in my spare bedroom and he was looking for you. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? I said, John? He said, yeah. He had been away, this neighbour. He got back, parked up his scooter, went to go in his house, and out of the darkness, he heard this voice saying, Simon, Simon. Scared the crap out of him, couldn't see who it was, put the light on. There's an old man sat on the chair outside his house, looking very old and not looking very well. And he said, no, I'm not Simon, I am whoever he is. He says, can I help you? What are you doing here? To which the guy says, he's locked out of his house. He can't get in, and he was looking for me. Now, this was very strange because I had no idea who the fellow was. So my friend said, hold on a minute, I will send you a photograph. He sent me a photograph. I looked at it, I thought, I have no idea who this fellow is. I've never seen him before in my life. I know nothing about him. So I said, look, sorry, I can't help. What's happened? What's going on? He said, well, he's asleep in my spare bedroom now because I thought he was a friend of yours. I'm like, I don't know the guy, mate. I've never seen him before in my life. I would recognise him. So I said, what's actually happened then? So my friend had come home. He'd been away for a week on another island. This old boy, and he looked old. Turns out he actually looks older than he is because he's not in the best health, but he's in his 70s, shall we say. And yeah, it transpires he had apparently got home. He actually lives next door to my friend, doesn't live next door to me. So I have no idea where he got my name from or why he was looking for me. But he was. Actually, I do have an idea now, but I'm not going to mention that because it might identify him. Anyway, but I never met the guy before. I've met his wife. That's it. And my name must have come up in conversation, I don't know, with him. So it transpires that this guy had been going back to his home country that day without his partner. Going back, it would seem, for the purpose of going into full-time medical care, and it would appear not returning to the Philippines. I think it's safe to say the fella must have dementia of some sort. But for whatever reason, he had got to the airport and he had changed his mind and he had decided to come back. So he had come back to the house. His girlfriend partner was no longer there. He was unable to get in. So he had literally spent the whole day from the very early hours in the morning until 9 o'clock at night, sat outside my friend's house, confused and not sure what to do. Hadn't had a drink or anything like that. So the first thing my friend had done is given him a couple of drinks, got him hydrated. Fellow had said he was very tired, so he had put him in the spare room. Now, before he had put him in the spare room, he had said, do you have a contact number? Do you have a phone number? Any way of getting in touch with your girlfriend? Guy didn't have a clue. Didn't know who, didn't have a number for her, didn't know any contact details for her. So he said, so this is at the stage that my friend called me. And I said, what are you going to do then? And he said, well, what should I do? I said, I've got no idea. I'm in sick. I don't know what I would do in a situation like that. So what he had resolved to do was he had got the partner's name. He had looked on Facebook and there were a number of people with that name in this area. So he was going to message them and say, is this your partner? And send a photo because he'd taken a photograph. And I'm like, well, you're just going to message people and say, is this your old man? He said, I don't know what else to do unless you've got any suggestions. Which I haven't got a clue, mate. You know, it's a very bizarre situation. So I said, I wish I could help, but I don't know this chap from Adam. And I'm in Sikihor. So I had no idea who was at that stage, and nor did my friend, which is even more ridiculous, as you will find out when we get to the end of the story. So that's how I left it. He was going to send a number of people on this on Facebook with the same name as his partner a photograph and say, look, is this your boyfriend, husband, whatever? Couldn't quite get out of him what the relationship between them was. Can you come and get him, basically? And he'd been in the spare room now for a few hours. So what happened was I left it at that. I was going out for dinner with Ellen and Kayla. Then he messaged me and said that he had found an iPad. The chap had an iPad. He'd seen it in the top of his rucksack because I don't know what he'd been going. I think he'd been going through it, looking for ID or whatever. And he had found a contact detail on there. So he had messaged her directly in the hope that she would reply. And she hadn't replied. So, and this was several hours later. So there was literally nothing I could do. I mean, he's keeping me abreast of the situation, but I don't know what you do in a situation like that. It's ridiculous. Several hours passed. In the early hours of the morning, I think it was 6 or 7 o'clock, my friend woke up and he could hear a phone ringing. And it wasn't his phone. So he goes into the spare room. The old guy's got up a couple of times in the night and wandered around looking for things, scared the crap out of him again. He got him settled down back into bed. But he hears his phone ringing. And it's coming from the bottom of the guy's rucksack. He looks in there and there is a telephone. And it's the girlfriend. And she has called him up because she's seen the Facebook message from my friend. Now, this is the bit that's incredibly funny. Not only was it the girlfriend, she was actually in the house and had been in their house the whole time. It transpires what had happened is the guy had gone to the airport to go back to his home country, which is Australia. It appears he was going to go into hospice care. He had decided that he's in a very sick way. that the best thing for him to do was to go back to his home country. For whatever reason, he had had second thoughts at the airport and he had decided to go home. At the point he had actually arrived home, his girlfriend had gone to Jollibee to have some breakfast with, I think it's her cousin or her sister or something like that. So she had only been out of the house for 30 minutes, an hour. She had then got back, at which point he had already gone and sat outside my neighbour's house. He had never gone back and checked. So the whole time she was in the house, he was in the house, he was in the bed. She was next door in the house. I said to him, I said, why the hell did you not go round and check? And he said, didn't occur to him. He knew where the house was, but it's got big gates, it's locked up, there's no way of getting in there. So he hadn't checked. So she came round. They woke him up and she took him back. And that was that. Now, I think it's hilarious that he hadn't checked. I mean, if it had been me, as soon as I found out where the house was, I'm pretty damn sure I would have gone round and I would have been checking every half an hour. I would have been ringing the bell, trying to look for a way to get in, climbed over the fence or something, got him back in his own abode. But as I say, that didn't occur to my friend. He's explained why. He reckons it would have been impossible to get in there. He should have bloody checked, for Christ's sake. I mean, if he had done, it would have solved it all. So when he first told me this story, I thought it was hilarious. I told a number of friends. Everyone I told thought it was hilarious. We couldn't believe he hadn't checked the house to see if she was in. But for the guy himself it happened to, I mean, it's terrible. He had spent, 12, 13 hours without liquids, without anything to eat, confused, sat outside my friend's house. I mean, it was a very hot weekend. He could have easily passed away. Thank God he didn't. But that is the story. But the reason I'm telling you this story is it got me thinking about the realities of living over here and the dangers of dementia. Because dementia is a real thing. I mean, it's becoming increasingly common. I think the chances, statistically, you're more likely than not to develop dementia at some stage in the UK, or it's very close to 50-50 as people are living longer. And I don't think it's something that a lot of people plan for when they move out of their home country and come to a place like the Philippines, because it's all very well and good having health insurance, good health insurance. That's going to care for you or cover you if you've got a good policy, if you are competent enough to claim on it, if you are competent enough to go through the right channels to get care, one presumes. But if you've got dementia, you're not going to be able to do that, are you? And by definition, you are going to become confused. Most of the time, you're going to be unable to sort these things. So, I mean, the way it would work, obviously, I mean, me now, if I got dementia, I still have friends and family in the UK. I believe I would return home to get the appropriate treatment. However, I hope I don't get dementia. And if I do get dementia, statistically, probably going to be quite a long way in the future. Although sometimes I often question if I've got it already now. I do have a lot of senior moments these days, more than I used to. I will go into the kitchen looking for something and I will forget what I was looking for momentarily. So, I mean, it comes to us all, or it's going to come to us all. But the point is, in 20 years, say, if I develop dementia then, who is going to be left in the UK that I could rely on to look after me? I don't have any kids. It's very likely my parents will have passed away by then. I'm an only child. I mean, I have a couple of step brothers since my mother remarried, who I'm on very friendly terms with. I doubt they're going to be looking after me in 20 years. It's a real difficult thing. And that's what got me thinking, because I'm not going to be critical of Filipinas over here. I'm very lucky to have Ellen. She's very loving. From what I know, this chap is lucky enough to have a partner who has been very caring and very loving. But let's be honest, at the end of the day, your typical Filipina is not going to be versed in the arts of dealing with the necessary health authorities. I mean, she didn't get him to the airport and get him on the plane, which clearly somebody needed to do. Now, I'm not critical of her in any way of doing that. Anyone who lived in the Philippines, I'm trying to say this in the nicest possible way. A typical Filipino is not particularly worldly wise. They have a different attitude when it comes to healthcare. The health authorities have a different attitude in terms of the value of life and things like that. I think there are very, very few Filipinos who could navigate this. It's a difficult situation. You know, even if I was caring for a neighbour or I decided to take it on board, there's a lot to take on. A lot to take on. I mean, she would not have been able to go to the airport. She would not have been able to, or she could have taken him to the airport. Maybe she did. I do not know. But unless she was going to be on the flight with him, she wouldn't be able to go through the security gates and get him boarded onto the flight. I've no idea whether he went through security and then came back out again. I know some of the airlines are helpful. If you've got wheelchair needs and things, they will help you on there. Whether they'll help someone with dementia in terms of insurance policies, I just don't know, is the honest way of looking at it. I don't know. I can certainly see why they might say no, that it needs a carer. She wouldn't have been able to sort out a visa to take him back there. That would have required him to sort that out. And it's quite obvious from the contact I've had with him and the contact my friend had with him, he's in no position to arrange that. So it's a very, potentially, a very serious issue for the reasons I've stated, which it's got me thinking about long and hard. I mean, I know from my time in the UK, people who watch Channel 10, I ended up caring for someone during lockdown when I went back to the UK when they called can't speak, closed the borders. I couldn't get back to Thailand, so I ended up working as a private carer for a friend's parents, and it was the best thing I ever did. And he had dementia, so I am aware of how it affects people. I've seen it firsthand. I looked after the guy until he passed away. Power of attorney, I know, is an option because in that situation, his children were power of attorney, so they were able to make the decisions for him. I am aware that you can certainly we can in the UK. What happens a lot of the time, a solicitor, a lawyer, you call him in America an attorney or whatever, can become the power of attorney. It's not something I've looked into long and hard. It's certainly something I'm going to consider going forward because you need an advocate. If you're going to be in a situation like that, you need an advocate who you know or you firmly believe or you hope is going to safeguard your best interests, who has the competence to be able to tackle a situation like that. Because with the best will in the world, you know, you might think at this stage, well, my girlfriend or my wife is going to look after me when I get to that stage. And hopefully they will. But if it's dementia, there is very likely that a stage is going to come where your care needs may well be too much for them to cope with. They may give up. They may decide they didn't sign up for that. Even with the best will in the world, it may get too much for them. And, you know, it may be better for you to go back to your home country. The point is, at that stage, you won't be in a position to decide what's best for you. You won't know what's best for you. So, depressing as this content is, as I said, it was a very funny story. I mean, I thought it was hilarious You know, when I'm sat in the restaurant over there and I'm saying, what are you going to do? Send people a photo and say, is this your old? Do you know this old man? Can you come and get him? But yeah, this was a few weeks back. I've thought about it long and hard. Was not something I had thought of before. You know, you would like to think that, you know, when you're diagnosed with dementia, that you won't be so far gone that you will be able to make the decisions to deal with that, and that you would go back to your home country, or you could arrange adequate care over here. Be nice to think, if you've got a good insurance policy, that they would look after you. But definitely think, no matter who you are, no matter what age you are, the sooner you start thinking about this and the sooner you start planning for this, the better. And as I say, I don't know how it works over here in terms of setting up a power of attorney with a Filipino lawyer, whether you would be comfortable doing that. But it's quite clear, if the worst happens, you do need to have someone, or put plans in place now, that will cover that eventuality to the best you can. I mean, it is an impossible thing to plan for. Now, one of the things I love about Doomageti, as I've said many times on this channel, is the community spirit here. You know, people look after each other, they really do. I get the impression, though, this chap is not as, I don't know, what's the word? Doesn't have as big a friend network as I have. And I have got a very big friend network. I'm very lucky with that. I know that if something happened to me, friends would rally to my aid, because there are a couple of chaps over the last few months who it has happened to. One guy needed serious healthcare. He got very sick over here. He ended up in a Philippine hospital. He's now gone back to New Zealand. But a couple of guys I know, friends, they rallied round. They were staying in the house, so he always had someone with him. They sorted out his flights. They took it in turns to take him to his hospital visits. You know, he was a single guy. So, I mean, that happens. It's one of the benefits, one of the reasons why. I know you get a lot of people who'll say, oh, they don't want to come here. The last thing they want to do is associate with expats. They just want to be with Filipinos. You know, they want to live as far away from an expat community, community as possible. Well, I hear you. I used to have those thoughts when I lived in the mountains in Thailand. But I tell you now, if I got dementia and I was still living there, much as I love a lot of my friends there, they would not. I know them. I've known them years now. They would not know how to care for me. There were a couple of my girlfriend's grandmother. She had dementia. She did not get, you know, the standard of care you would want in that age. You know, they just found her irritating, and they would constantly tell her, "No, you're confused." They didn't deal with it well. You know what I mean? I've no doubt that's going to happen to you in the provinces, unless you're incredibly lucky, unless you marry a doctor or a nurse or something like that. So listen, it really is food for thought. Not the cheeriest subject, but something that, you know, you need to think about. If anyone has got experience of this, if anyone has thought of this, if anyone has had a relative over there, if they know any suggestions of a good way to deal with this situation. I mean, as I understand it, the chap in question is still here. I think he has decided to end his days here, which is fair enough. But hopefully now he has some Western people who are taking more of an interest now, who can, you know, get involved to ensure he has the best possible outcome. And let's face it, we know the outcome is going to be negative, but all we can hope for, really, isn't it, is to be as comfortable as we possibly can when the end comes, if you know what I mean. Anyway, I've laboured on enough about this. I just think it's something that needs to be talked about. I don't think I've ever seen anyone talk about this on YouTube before regarding the Philippines. It's funny because I did an interview. I did a few interviews actually for Peter, Irish Times, and he was saying in one of those his biggest fear was getting dementia overseas. And when he said that, it didn't really strike home with me. I thought, I know where you're coming from. I know how terrible dementia can be as a disease. But this story really has made it, you know, hit home. One of the things I suggest you do if you're in Doomageti, start coming to the quiz nights of Sideways. I don't say that flippantly. But I've got talking to a few people over the last few months, and a few of the older guys have said they come here to try and keep their brain, focused, keep it tight. Got to try and keep yourself mentally active. It's important. It really is. And this is an important story because you know yourself, most of the expats over here of an age, believe it or not, I'm 54. I am in the very young demographic. I've got a lot of friends who are in their 70s and 80s. I know a couple of good friends over here who are in the early stages of dementia. Fortunately, they are aware of that, and hopefully they've got a long run before they have to, you know what I mean. And they've got family, they've got children. But for someone like me that has no kids, realistically in 20, 30 years, all I will have is, say, friends in the UK. And these are friends that, good friends, but I've lost touch with them. The point is, I have to make plans and think long and hard about what I'm going to do to cover the bases with regard to this, certainly, and healthcare in general, as time goes on. But, you think about a heart attack, you think about cancer, you think about all these things, you think about a bike accident, and you think, well, I'll get the appropriate insurance, I'll get this, I'll make the decisions that have to be made at the time, I'll have my emergency fund. But dementia really is something that you can't plan for. That's the point, and that's the scary thing about it. You've got to plan for someone else to make your decisions for you when the time comes, and you've got to think long and hard and make sure you have the right person. Anyway, so that's the first story. The second story is another sensitive story. I'm going to save it for the next video. It's a bloody shocking one, actually. Made me angry, has made a lot of expats over here angry. It's a very sensitive subject because the guy has only recently passed and he didn't have to. There was no need for him to. It was just sheer incompetence and negligence. I'm going to have to be very careful when I tell this story not to name any hospitals or anything like that because you could be liable over here. But yeah, again, it has made you realise, or made me realise, that you're taking your life in your hands when you move to somewhere like Dumaguete, regardless of your insurance policy, regardless of what you put in place. If you've got a pre-existing medical condition, you need to think long and hard. But anyway, more cheery stuff, but you'll have to wait for the next video for that. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the video. I don't know if you can enjoy a subject like this, can you? Well, hopefully you did. Hopefully you found the story funny. But hopefully you have taken on board what I'm trying to say. Don't want to lecture people, but I think it's something that needs to be said. And it's certainly a topic that needs to be talked about. Anyway, if you did like the video, smash the like button. If you haven't subscribed, it will be fantastic if you did. But whether you do, whether you don't, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, stay safe and be lucky.